Al-Malik al-Ashraf Salah al-Din Khalil ibn Khalil was the 8th Mamluk Sultan of Egypt from 1290 until his assassination in December 1293. He is most famous for conquering the last of the Crusader states in Palestine with the capture of Acre in 1291. Background: Al-Ashraf Khalil, the 8th Kipchak Turkic Sultan of Egypt, was born in Cairo, the son of Sultan Khalil. He became heir to the Sultanate and was named co-sultan with his father shortly after the sudden death of his older brother As-Saleh Ali in 1288. During the investiture, Khalil faced a formal problem as the succession document was not signed by his late father. According to the ceremony judge, Fath ad-Din Abdul-Zahir, his father refused to sign the document before his death, saying, "Fath ad-Din, I cannot let Khalil rule the Muslims." When Khalil saw the document without his father's signature, he said, "Fath ad-Din, the Sultan declined to give it to me, but God gave it to me," and he was inaugurated. Khalil's vice-sultan, Hosam ad-Din Turrente and Emir Kitbuffa, were arrested by Khalil and Turrente was executed as he led a conspiracy to kill him, but Kitbuffa was later released, while Baydara al-Manshuri became the new vice-sultan. Hosam ad-Din Lajan became the deputy of the Sultan in Syria and Ibn al-Salas was granted the post of vizier. After Khalil liquidated his opponents and secured his position, he was ready to complete the work which his father did not finish, namely the recapturing of the last strongholds of the Franks situated on the Syrian coast. Conquest of Acre. Khalil, father of Khalil, conquered the county of Tripoli in 1289, and in 1290 marched on Acre, the capital of the remnant of the Kingdom of Jerusalem, but, to the relief of the Franks of Acre, he died in November before launching the attack. He was succeeded by Khalil, who decided to continue the attack. Khalil sent a message to William of Beaujeu, the master of the temple, telling him about his intentions to attack Acre and urging him not to send messengers or gifts. But a delegation from Acre led by Sir Philip Maigny-Buffe arrived in Cairo with gifts and appealed to Khalil not to attack Acre. Khalil did not accept the request and imprisoned the Frank messengers. Al-Ashraf Khalil assembled the forces of Egypt and Syria, which included a great number of volunteers and siege engines from everywhere at Hisn al-Akrad. Some of Khalil's catapults were huge and had such names as Al-Manshuri and the Furious, in addition to lighter, but potent, mangonels called Black Bulls. 4 armies from Damascus, Hama, Tripoli and Al-Qarq marched to Acre to join the Egyptian army of Khalil. In addition to the historian Baybars al-Judah who led the army of Al-Qarq, Abu al-Fida was another prominent historian who accompanied al-Ashraf in his Levantian expedition. The Franks of Acre were for some time aware of the seriousness of the situation. They asked for help from Europe, which resulted in nothing significant. A small group of knights, among them the Swiss Otto de Grandison, were sent by King Edward I of England. Burchard of Schwanden, the Grand Master of the German Teutonic Knights, resigned and was replaced by Conrad von Feuchtwangen, who suddenly left Acre for Europe. The only noteworthy reinforcement came from King Henry II of Cyprus, who fortified the walls and sent forces led by his brother Amalric to defend the city. Acre was well defended by 2 lines of thick walls and had 12 towers, which were built by European kings and rich pilgrims. On 5 April 1291, Khalil's forces stood in front of Acre. The army of Hama took its position on front of the Templars' Tower, while the Egyptian army stretched out from the end of the wall of Monmusard up to the Gulf of Acre. The Dilis stood on a small hill near the shore on front of the Tower of the Legate. On April 6, the catapults began to hurl stones and fire over the walls of Acre. For 8 days the walls were hurled and both armies engaged in occasional clashes. At the end of the 8 days the Muslims set up barricades and began to move further towards the city, using wicker screens, till in the end they reached the edge of the wall. Carabouhas were brought up and parts of the wall were mined out. Despite the continual arrival of reinforcements from Cyprus to Acre by sea, the Franks became convinced of their lack of strength against Khalil's army. On April 15, under moonlight, the Templars, led by Jean Grailly and Otto de Grandison, launched a sudden attack against the camp of the contingent of Hammer, but their horses got their legs tangled in the ropes of the Muslims' tents and were caught, and many were killed. Another attack, after a few days and this time under cover of darkness, by the Hospitallers also ended badly. On May 5 some hope was revived when Henry II of Cyprus arrived with forces transported by 40 ships. But soon Henry, too, became convinced of his helplessness. The Franks sent messengers to Al-Ashraf Khalil, who saluted him on their knees. Khalil asked them whether they brought him the keys of the city, but they replied that the city could not be surrendered so easily and that they only came to plead for mercy for the poor inhabitants, and that the Franks were willing to discuss any injustice done by them earlier to the Muslims and to restore the truce signed by them and the Muslims. Khalil promised the messengers to spare the life of everyone if the Franks hand him Acre peacefully, but the messengers refused his offer. While the messengers were still there, a huge catapult stone launched from the city struck the ground near the Sultan's tent. Khalil, believing that the Crusaders were negotiating in bad faith, reacted furiously and wanted to kill the two messengers, but Emir Sundra al-Shuja pleaded for them and they were sent back to the city. From May 8, Acre's towers began to cave in one after one. On May 18, early in the morning at sunrise, the Sultan gave his order to launch an all-out attack on all points, accompanied by sound of trumpets and drums carried on 300 camels. The Muslim forces advanced towards a great tower that was called the Accursed Tower and forced the Frankish garrison to retreat to the side of the Gate of St. Anthony. Muslim standards were placed on the walls. All counter-attacks and attempts made by the Hospitallers and the Templars to recapture the tower were in vain. King Henry II and the Master of the Hospital boarded their galleys and fled from Acre. William of Beaujeu, the Master of the Temple, and Matthew of Clermont were killed. By capturing these positions, the Muslim forces were now inside the city fighting the Franks in the streets and alleys of Acre, which turned into a terrifying chaos as the inhabitants were fleeing towards the sea. How many inhabitants perished on land and in sea is unknown. Before night, Acre, after being in the hands of the Franks for 100 years, was in the hands of Al-Ashraf Khalil and his army after a siege of 43 days, with exception of the huge headquarters of the Templars which stood on the west side of the city seashore. After a week, Al-Ashraf Khalil negotiated with Peter de Sevres, who was in charge of the Templars, and it was agreed that the Templars and everyone inside the fortress would have free passage to Cyprus. But the Sultan's men who were sent to the fortress to supervise the evacuation seemed not disciplined enough to handle the matter and were massacred by the Templars. Under the cover of darkness, Theobald Gaudin, the new master of the temple, left the fortress for Sidon with a few people and the fortune of the Templars. In the morning, Peter de Sevres went to the Sultan to settle a new negotiation, but he was arrested with his followers and they were executed in retaliation for the Sultan's men who were massacred earlier by the Templars inside the fortress. When the besieged Templars in the fortress saw what happened to Peter de Sevres, they continued the fight. On May 28, after a wide breach was made under the fortress, the Sultan sent about 2,000 men to take it. The Frankish fortress collapsed, killing everyone inside, including Sultan's men. The news of the conquest of Acre reached Damascus and Cairo. Al-Ashraf Khalil entered the decorated city of Damascus with Franks chained at the feet and the captured Crusader standards which were carried upside down as a sign of their defeat. After celebrating his victory in Damascus, Khalil left for Cairo, which was also decorated and celebrating. Arriving at Cairo, he ordered the release of Philip Maine-Boeuf and the men who accompanied him to Cairo earlier. Capture of Tyre, Sidon, Beirut, Haifa and Tartus. The port of Tyre was one of the most protected strongholds of the Franks on the Syrian coast. Saladin failed twice to capture it. Tyre was passed from Margaret of Lusignan to her nephew Amalric shortly before the capture of Acre by Al-Ashraf Khalil. On May 19, 1291, Al-Ashraf, while still in Acre, sent a group of men, led by Emir Sunja al-Shuri, to examine the situation in Tyre. Having a small garrison and seeing the fleeing refugees from Acre, Adam of Kathran, the bailey of Tyre, panicked and fled to Cyprus. Tyre was taken by the Muslims without a fight. A month after the capture of Acre, Al-Ashraf Khalil sent a force led by Emir al-Shuri to Sidon. The Knights Templar, as their treasury had been brought to Sidon earlier by Theobald Gaudin, the new master of the temple, decided to take refuge inside a castle that was built on an island about 90 meters from the shore. Gaudin took the treasury and left for Cyprus after he promised his followers to send reinforcements from Cyprus. But Gaudin never arranged anything and his followers had to fight on their own. After they saw the Muslims building a bridge during the night, they fled by sea to Tartus. Emir al-Shuri ordered the destruction of the sea castle on July 14. After the capture of Sidon, al-Shuri marched to Beirut. Beirut, which had a small garrison, was an important trading seaport for the Crusaders. Esquiva of Ibelin, the Lady of Beirut, thought she was secure because she had a truce with Al-Ashraf Khalil's father Kaloyan. Al-Shuri summoned the commanders of the garrison and arrested them. Seeing the commanders arrested, everyone fled by sea. Beirut was taken by the Muslims on July 31. Al-Shuri ordered the razing of its walls and castles and turned its cathedral into a mosque. Haifa was captured on July 31, with little resistance. Tartus was besieged by Emir Bilbang and the Crusaders had to flee to the nearby island of Arwad and was captured on August 3, followed by Atlat on August 14. Nothing was left for the Franks except the island of Arwad, which was captured by an Egyptian army later in 1302. In 1292, Al-Ashraf Khalil, accompanied by his vizier Ibn al-Salas, arrived in Damascus and then travelled via Aleppo to besiege the castle of Kalat Haram. Kalat Haram, which was the seat of the Patriarch of Armenia, was besieged by more than 30 catapults and was captured after 30 days by Khalil, who renamed it Kalat al-Muslimin. Khalil left Emir al-Shari at the castle and returned to Damascus with prisoners. The population of Damascus bid farewell to the victorious Sultan on his way to Cairo at night with thousands of lighted candles. The Sultan entered Cairo through the Victory Gate and was greeted by the celebrating population, also with thousands of lighted candles. The Sultan returned to Damascus and assembled an army to invade Sis, the capital of the Armenian Kingdom of Cilicia. But Armenian messengers arrived in Damascus and appealed to him not to attack Sis. Till Hemdans, Marish and Behesni were given to the Sultan in exchange for peace. Khalil had good relations with the Kingdom of Cyprus, the Kingdom of Aragon, and the Kingdom of Sicily, who had commercial and military treaties with him. The process of conquering the Crusader kingdom, begun by Saladin in 1187, was finally completed by Khalil, who was described on some of his monuments as the equivalent to Alexander. Al-Ashraf was also planning to attack Cyprus and the Mongols in Baghdad. The Crusaders were shocked. Their 200 years of effort had gone in vain. The Crusaders' kingdom of Jerusalem had already been destroyed by Saladin, Baybars and Kaloyan, and Louis IX's Seventh Crusade against Egypt ended in a complete failure. But the Crusaders tried to keep their strongholds on the Syrian coast intact, hoping to be able one day to recapture what they had lost. Pope Nicholas IV tried to act, but he died in 1292, and the European kings, who became involved in internal conflicts and struggles, became unable to organize new effective crusades. As for the Templars, they were accused of heresy in Europe and badly persecuted by King Philip IV of France and Pope Clement V. Domestic conflicts and assassination. Militarily, Al-Ashraf Khalil possessed the vigor and capability of two of his predecessor, Baybars, and his father Kaloyan, but many emirs disliked him. He started his reign by executing and imprisoning a few prominent emirs of his father, among them the Vice-Sultan Turante. During the battle for Acre he arrested Hosam ad-Din Lajan, and later, after he returned to Cairo, he executed Sunkur al-Ashkar and a few emirs. Khalil continued his father's policy of replacing Turkish Mamluks with Circassians, a policy which contributed in the intensification of the rivalry among the Mamluks. After his victories against the Franks, arrogance got hold of Al-Ashraf Khalil. He treated the emirs roughly and began to sign messages and documents with the letter KH only. In addition, his vizier Ibn al-Salas was envied by many emirs and by the vice-sultan Baydara in particular. Ibn al-Salas, who, originally, was neither a Mamluk nor an emir but a merchant from Damascus, became the most influential official during the reign of Khalil. While al-Ashraf was rough on the emirs, he was very generous towards Ibn al-Salas, who did not treat the emirs with respect. Ibn al-Salas was involved in the unjustly persecution of the Supreme Judge of Egypt Ibn Bint al-Azd, as he was involved in provoking the Sultan against Baydara on several occasions. In December 1293, Al-Ashraf Khalil, accompanied by Ibn al-Salas, Baydara and other emirs went to Tuareg in northern Egypt on a bird-hunting expedition. He sent Ibn al-Salas to the nearby city of Alexandria to bring materials and to collect the taxes. Arriving at Alexandria, Ibn al-Salas found out that the deputies of Baydara had already taken everything. On receiving a message from Ibn al-Salas with this news, Al-Ashraf summoned Baydara to his dais and insulted and threatened him in the presence of other emirs. The distressed Baydar left the dais and called Lajan, Kara Sunkur and other emirs, and together they decided to kill the Sultan. On the 14th of December, while the Sultan was walking with his friend Emir Shihab ad-Din Ahmad, he was attacked and assassinated by Baydara and his followers. The emirs who struck the Sultan after Baydara were Hosam ad-Din Lajan and Bahadir Ras Nuba, followed by other emirs. After the assassination of Al-Ashraf Khalil, Baydara and his followers went to the dais and proclaimed Baydara the new sultan. But Baydara was soon arrested by the Sultani Mamluks and emirs. Baydara was killed by the Sultani emirs led by Kitbuffer and Baybars al-Jashnakir, and his head was sent to Cairo. Ibn al-Salas was arrested in Alexandria and was sent to Cairo, where he was mistreated and at last beaten to death. The emirs who were involved in the assassination of Al-Ashraf Khalil were severely punished and executed. Lajan and Kara Sunkur fled and disappeared. After the death of Al-Ashraf Khalil, the emirs decided to install his 9-year-old brother Al-Nazir Muhammad as the new sultan, with Kitbuffer as vice-sultan and al-Shari as the new vizier. But the death of Al-Ashraf Khalil was concealed for some time. While Al-Ashraf was dead, his brother Al-Nazir Muhammad was proclaimed vice-sultan and heir. A message from Egypt to the Syrian emirs said, "I appointed my brother Al-Malik Al-Nazir Muhammad as my vicegerent and heir, so that when I go to fight the enemy he replaces me." As soon as everything was under control, the death of Al-Ashraf Khalil was revealed to the public in Egypt and Syria. Al-Ashraf Khalil ruled about 3 years and 2 months. He had 2 daughters. Besides being remembered as the conqueror of Acre, he was remembered by Muslim historians as an intelligent sultan who was fond of reading and learning. Coins of Al-Ashraf Khalil. Coins of Al-Ashraf Khalil were unique in Mamluk coinage history. New kind of titles were inscribed on his coins, such as Al-Sultan Al-Malik, Al-Ashraf Salah al-Din Nazir Al-Mila Al-Muhammadiyya Mahai Al-Dawala Al-Abbasiyya, Al-Sultan Al-Malik, Al-Ashraf Salah al-Donyawa al-Din Kashim Amir al-Mumin, and the Emir of the Faithful was the title of the Abbasid Caliph. His father Kaloran was also mentioned on Al-Ashraf's coins as Maulana Al-Sultan Al-Malik Al-Mansur.